Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Jason White, and this is Jason's Weird Reads, and today I'm going to be doing From the Hip, number 20, and if you don't know what From the Hip is, it's basically where I just shoot the shit with you from the hip, basically talk about some personal stuff that's generally related to the channel, and then I go into what I've been reading. So how about we get right into it? Alright, so what's been happening? Well, Halloween has come and gone, and it was really awesome. As you guys probably know, I switched jobs recently. I used to work 12-hour shifts that rotated between nights and days, and that was killing me, like, literally, I think. Anyway, so it was nice this year to have a Halloween that I could experience and not miss half of it because I was at work. I was able to watch some baseball playoffs, which was cool. I never get to do that. And I also got to experience all the horror movies that were on TV, and there was a lot. AMC plays a lot of horror movies, more than they used to, and I have fallen back in love with that channel. Alright, so, Halloween was really good, and speaking of the new job, it's going well too. I do miss the old paycheck, but, I'm currently trying to figure out how to make ends meet better, and that's kind of a project that I'm working on. But one thing that I noticed is completely gone is that dread I used to feel before I had to go to work and while I was at work, at the old factory, and so that is nice not having to deal with anymore. Like, for example, tomorrow I have to go to work, and it's just like, whatever, instead of if I was at the factory and I had to work tomorrow, I would be pacing the house, which I did. I was just a bundle of nerves all the time. I don't know why either. It's just not a great place for me. It's too loud, for one thing. So that's going really good, but despite all this, the SAD, or seasonal affective disorder, is kicking in, and it's not as bad as it has been in years previous, I guess because of the job change. But, the way it affects me, and the way it's always affected me, is I just want to sleep so much. And of course you can't, but, I wish I was a bear sometimes, and I could just go and find myself a cave and sleep for the winter. That right there should show you just how much I love winter. Alright, so there's not much really else to talk about in the From the Hip segment of this recent reads, so I'm just going to get into the recent reads before this becomes like a half-hour long video. Alright, so what am I currently reading? Well, I am reading Devolution by Max Brooks, and I'm listening to the audiobook because a lot of people commented on my TBR video for the cryptid read-along, the cryptid readathon that's going on right now in the month of November. And a lot of people commented saying you should listen to the audiobook because it's awesome, and so I'm doing that, and yes, it is awesome. I don't know how I got through it so fast. I'm almost at the end. I'm like 4 hours away from the end. But I remember it being at like the 10th hour for what felt like a very long time. But then again, the beginning of the book really kind of dragged for me. It was just that the main character, her journal entries. I swear to God, for like 2 chapters, she was just going on and on and on about how beautiful the place they're staying at is. And she went into detail, and that's how she went on and on about it. She went into like the plants, what the sky looked like, the mountains, and all that stuff. And it's cool. I like it when authors can incorporate nature into their stories, but it just went on for a little too long, I felt. But the rest of after we got through that, and the volcano erupts nearby, things change, and it becomes more of a matter of survival. And so I'm really enjoying it, and I'm so glad I decided to read this for the cryptid readathon. And I'm also reading The Jersey Devil by Hunter Shea now. I started this last week. I think it was like Halloween night when I started reading this. But because of Halloween and some other things that have been going on with work too, I haven't been able to just sit down and read. So I'm not very far into it. I'm like on chapter 4 or 5. But so far, it's like a really good. It's fun. It's Hunter Shea from what I remember. I've read a couple of his books, and this one is good. It's going to be fun. You can tell it's going to be fun. It's going to have that nastiness once the things start to happen. The one thing I really enjoyed about the Jersey Devil was the very first chapter. You get this woman who at first, and this isn't necessarily it's not a spoiler because it's the very first chapter. It's like the setup. It's almost a prologue, so to speak. It's about a woman whose husband accidentally killed himself. He was drunk and he was walking from one room to the next, and he slipped on a carpet or something, landed wrong by the couch, and broke his neck. So she decides to roll him up in a carpet and bury him, because her husband was very abusive towards her, and he was also a cop. And he used to joke around maybe to his friends, saying that, if something ever happens to me, you got to look at her, meaning, his wife, this character here. And so she drives him out far away into the woods, and as she's digging a hole for him, she's attacked by the Jersey Devil. And the way it's written is really cool, because it's almost like a camera, except it's from the point of view of this woman, as she hides in the hole, first of all, when it first attacks, and she makes it until the morning. And after the morning comes, she gets out of the hole and she runs to her truck, and that's when she's captured, and the thing grabs her by the shoulders with its talons and lifts her up into the air, and from her viewpoint, you see her go up and see the truck get smaller and smaller as she's taken away. I absolutely loved that. That was really good. There you go, Jersey Devil. I don't think it'll be a favorite by any means, but it's a lot of fun. So, what have I been reading recently? Since the last From the Hip and recent reads? Well, I went through about 9 books, and so that's like just over a month. I went through 9 books, and that's pretty good for me. First up, and I was talking about this in the last recent reads. Sisters of the Vast Black by Lena Rather. Now, this book was interesting. I've talked about this book. Some of these books I've talked about a lot, so I'm going to try to keep it short, especially so this video doesn't become like a half hour long. Anyway, Sisters of the Vast Black involves a bunch of Catholic nuns who fly in this giant snail through space. I am not joking. Their spaceship is a living creature, and it's like a snail. It's described as snail-like, and they live in sort of compartments that are in the inside that are bred in a way that can be made habitable for them to travel through space. And the snail itself is fine traveling through space. And that's very odd. Like, this is one of the oddest books I've ever read because of that alone. I don't really want to get into the plot too much. It's a novella, and there's a part 2. I definitely want to get to that. I think I might read that in January, because for some reason, I kind of like reading space stuff when it's cold outside. When it's snowy and cold and I'm in my bed, it's just very comforting to me. And it's like dark in the room, and I have my Kindle set on the dark mode, and I'm in space traveling through. I don't understand it, but it's very comforting for me in the wintertime to read space stories. So I think I'll hop on the second one in January or February. But it was very good. I really enjoyed Sisters of the Vast Black, and if you haven't read it, you really got to check it out. It's science fiction. There's no horror, but there is some dire circumstances. Let's just say that. I also read How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. Now, this book was an interesting read for me. I will say right now that I enjoyed it. I did enjoy it, but it's not my favorite Grady Hendrix. I really enjoyed the first half. I know this is probably going to be a controversial opinion. I enjoyed the first half more than I liked the second half. I find that horror books almost never end well. They almost always have bad endings, and it's because I think A lot of authors want to wrap up and explain everything. That's my theory, anyway. And they want to wrap up all the plot points. That's not necessarily the problem with this, but to me, when the haunted dolls start taking over, it just got kind of silly, and not in a good way, in my opinion, but it's still good. But I must admit, the dynamics between the brother and the sister of this book were brilliant. I don't know if Grady Hendrix has family like this, but the way they bicker at each other and the way they fight for... Well, let me tell you the premise of the story. The premise of the story is a brother and a sister. They don't talk, so they don't get along. But their parents die in a car crash. And so they're pretty much forced together, and they have to go through the inheritance and who gets what. And that's where the fighting really starts. And so they have to go to the house, and she gets like a very small part. The brother gets a fair amount, and they start bickering over the whole thing, and the family itself that surrounds them sort of gets involved in how they can, and that's when they learn that there's something wrong with the house, something seriously wrong with the house, and then they start remembering things from their childhoods that have haunted them throughout their entire lives, but they not really forgot, but didn't want to deal with, and so they shoved it down into their memories. And that was the part that really spoke to me. I loved that part. And then, everything gets resolved and whatnot, and it's still good. I just really wished that we could have I would have been happy, honestly, if the haunted house part, or the dolls, as everyone knows now, it's not really a spoiler anymore, if that never came into play, if it was just a family drama, I would have been on board for the whole thing. It was really good, but it's not going to be my favorite Grady Hendrix. The next book I read, I also talked to death about, so I'm going to keep this one short. It's Dead End by Robbie Dorman. I've been recommending this book everywhere, even at work. It's funny. At my new job, I keep running into people who like horror, and I don't get it, because at the factory and other jobs I've worked at, nobody was really into horror, and they always looked at me as though I was like some kind of alien. I still get those looks these days, but I'm finding more people who like watching horror movies or reading horror books. And there's this one guy, and if you're watching, hey, we were talking about. We were talking about horror books, and he asked me, he's like, what book would you recommend? And I was like, oh man, that's like the all-time hardest question to answer. And so I just went with Dead End, because I was kind of hyping it up anyway, for my channel and for Robbie Dorman, which he never asked me to do that video that I did, why you should read Robbie Dorman. I should make that clear. I did that on my own, and I have plans for more of those for other authors that I think need to be spoken about just a little bit more. But anyways, I recommended Dead End. I don't know if he'll ever read it. It's totally fine if he doesn't, but the reason why I love it so much is because I really identified with it. It's about a guy who works at base. It's not Honda. Why did I say Honda? It's not Amazon. He calls it Nile. The company's name is Nile, but they basically represent what Amazon is in our world. And and the guy's working there because he has to. His name is Joe, and he hates working for people like Amazon. He's had trouble keeping a job because he doesn't like working for evil corporations, and then he ends up in like the evilest corporation you can think of, and he figures out just how evil they actually are and what they're doing in there. It's a really good book. I think it's a good commentary on our current workplace, what's out there, and how you got to watch yourself. You got to make a decision. If you a type of person who thinks this way, do you work for the evil corporation because they pay half decently, or do you try to find that job that'll at least keep you somewhat satisfied and happy? But of course it goes way beyond any of that. But I really enjoyed the book for that commentary, and the characters are great. Another Robbie Dorman book that I read, and I've only talked about once on that why you should read Robbie Dorman video is The War on Halloween by Robbie Dorman, of course. Now this book was different in a way too. I think most of his books are very different from each other, and that's one reason why I like reading Robbie Dorman. But this is a book, I wouldn't say it's anti-Christian. I could see why maybe people would think it's anti-Christian, but it's not really. I think it's just more against fundamentalism and people thrusting their belief systems onto others. Because the story is about a family that moves to a brand new town because the father got a new job as a cop there, and they quickly learn that Halloween is not tolerated because of the preacher that kind of runs the town in a way. They don't allow people to decorate their yards for Halloween is a big example, and what the story ultimately becomes about, because this new family in this new town, they love decorating for Halloween. They love Halloween, they love Christmas, but they love Halloween too, and they love going all out. And so they decide to throw a big Halloween party to despite this preacher guy, and you quickly learn what is exactly going on behind the doors of this church. And it's very hypocritical, and it's very evil, and the story was a hoot. It was honestly a hoot to read. I loved it. I think it's if you're going to go the social commentary route, it's good commentary on thrusting your beliefs on other people. And I've always had the theory of live and let live. Why can't we just live and let live? All right, so yeah, War on Halloween by Robbie Dorman is a lot of fun. Next up I read, and for the book club, and my book club, you can find it on the Fable app. You can join, the link is down there in the the show notes. We have about 20 members now, so that's a lot more than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be maybe 4 or 5 people, but quite a few people have joined up, and right now we are reading, as I said, Devolution. And also, if you're in the speaking of devolution and read-alongs, if you're in the Discord for the cryptid read-along, then we're doing a read-along there as well. So you can read this book for 2 book clubs if you're wanting to, or just one of them. That's fine. Both the links are down there in the I keep saying in the comments. It's not in the comments. It's down there in the show notes. So our first monthly read, though, was Pet Sematary. And this one went very well. Everyone seemed to really enjoy this book. And I know I did. It ended up being my favorite book with that top 10 revised horror list I did. Now, this is invariably, it's going to change. There's no doubt about that. It has to change at some point. But right now, as it stands, Pet Sematary is my favorite. And everyone knows the story, I think, of Pet Sematary. It's, again, a doctor who finds a new job at like a school, medical school. And so he moves his family to this a very rural type town. It's a small town. Excuse me. And there's this road. There's this road where truckers just speed on by, despite the speed limit. They just gun it because truckers they have deadlines and stuff. They have to get to places really quick. And so nearby this property, in fact I think the main pet cemetery is on their property. There's a trail that leads to the pet cemetery, and the pet cemetery is there because of that road. And that road really becomes kind of a character in the story. It's the main antagonist in a sense. But this story is mainly about loss and how it can drive you absolutely insane. I'm going to leave it at that because I think most people have probably either seen the movie or they've read the book, or both. All right, next up I read Dark Harvest, and all these books I read for my Halloween. Dark Harvest by Norman Partridge. Now, I listened to this on audio, and I think I would have had a better time reading it with my eyes, because there's a couple of things I actually didn't like too much about this book, and I don't think I rated it very high. One thing I didn't like about Dark Harvest was it was mostly action and no characterization. The characters were just flying through the motions of what was going on. And to be honest with you, I can't even remember much of it now. It's like I didn't even listen to it, but I did. So I'm gonna give it another chance, but I'm gonna have to read it next time. I also listened on audio to All Hallows by Christopher Golden. If memory serves me right, he just released this book like October 1st or something like that. It was just this year he released it. And this book was a blast. It's about a family who loves Halloween, but because of certain circumstances involving a layoff and whatnot, they're going to be moving. And so what they like to do during Halloween is they have like a forest in their backyard, and they like doing the haunted forest. And so they do all the things that you would imagine a haunted forest has. But there's these oh man, you know what? This book kind of reminded me a little bit of the Halloween version of Nosferatu by Joe Hill, because there's a very similar feel to that. There's like evil children and this pumpkin creature that's chasing them. And it becomes a bit of a slasher, honestly, and you don't know what's going on until the end. I'm going to keep it at that because this book is really fun. I think I'm going to read it or listen to it again next year for Halloween, because I really enjoyed what was going on in the story. The story isn't just about those creatures. It's also about this street where everyone lives, including the Halloween people, the people who love Halloween, and all the dirty secrets that are going on behind closed doors, and how in one night everything is destroyed. Not, like I said, not just because of these creatures, but because of adults' bad behavior, basically. It was really good. Really, really good. I can't recommend it enough. Next up, I read Sallow Bend by Alan Baxter. Now, this is a book I really, really, really wanted to enjoy. And I did enjoy a lot of it, but there's parts that just dragged on for too long. And that's my biggest complaint about this book. The book is about a custodian at a school, and he's autistic, basically. He doesn't like he has sensory issues, very big sensory issues. He doesn't really like talking to people, and he has trouble keeping eye contact. He's considered the town freak. That's what really drew me to him as a character, and I think his character was done really well. But when two little girls go missing, of course, the law's eyes turn on him because he works at the school, and he's also, the town freak, basically. Nobody really likes him. They don't trust him. But he befriends a woman in the town when he goes searching for these little girls. They team up. Her name is Trisha, I believe, and they go looking for the little girls. The little girls are found by there's a carnival too. The carnival comes in town, and they're setting up, so the law's eyes are set on them too, because carnies also are not trusted. So one of the carnies actually finds the little girls at this cabin that's kind of haunted and nobody likes to go near, and he brings them back. But there's a catch. There's 3 little girls now, and everyone remembers who that third little girl is. But our main character, I can't remember his name. It's like Cade or something like that. He remembers there only being 2. It's like, where's this third girl come from? And people who do remember the third girl, or don't remember the third girl and are questioning it, are turning up dead, and in quite horrible ways. Now, this book, like I said, it sounds good, and it was good, but it just went on for too long, I felt, and it just didn't connect with me like it should have. I really, really, really wanted to enjoy it, but in the end, I just couldn't. So I will definitely check out more by Alan Baxter, but this one just felt a little too wordy. All right, I failed in my goal of making this less than 25 to 30 minutes. Still have one book to go, and we're at 25 minutes now, so my apologies. But the last book here I listened to for Halloween was Mary by Nat Cassidy. Now, this book was a roller coaster ride for quite a few different reasons. One, I was like, this book is awesome, I love it. And then I don't know about this book. I don't think I like it anymore. And then, oh, this book is awesome. I love it. And then, I don't know if I like it anymore. And then went back up. In the end, I think I loved this book. The reason why I felt that way is because your expectations, and you start trying to figure out what's going on in the story. And you think you have it, and in parts you do understand what's going on and you were right, but it's not going to be revealed at the end like you thought it was. It's revealed fairly close to the beginning, maybe closer to the middle. And then once that happens, this book is bonkers in a good way. And now that I'm finished it, I want to read it again because I want to read it knowing what happens. It's a really fun book, though. It's not as dark as I thought it was going to be. I remember people talking about this book and saying it was like really, really twisted and dark, but I didn't. I mean, there's parts that are kind of twisted and kind of dark, but I've read so much worse. I was thinking along the lines of extreme horror, or something like that. But it's really not that. It's really a commentary on... I'm not going to go into the commentary. I think you should just read it. I'll give you the very basic premise about a woman who's 50. She's going on 50 years old, and she's menopausal, or pre-menopausal. But there's something else wrong with her. When she looks at women's faces for too long, those faces start to rot. And when she looks in the mirror, her own face starts to rot. And so her aunt calls her up and says, my daughter has left, and I'm going to need you to help me because I'm dying. I'm going to need you to help take care of me for 2 weeks. And so she decides, she was just laid off at her job, so she decides to go and help her aunt. This aunt, Nadine, is a hoot. I love the aunt, Nadine. I wouldn't want this aunt in real life, but she was very fun to read. I'm going to leave it at that because this book becomes a bit of a ghost story, and there's some other things going on too. And like I said, it's a roller coaster, man. It's crazy. I would say if you're at a part where you think you know how it's going to end, stick with it because you probably don't know how it's going to end. And you're probably not prepared for everything that's about to happen. You might know what's going on a little bit early, but like I said, you're not going to figure out the end. At least I didn't, but I thought I was going to. It's a fun read, and I highly recommend it. This won't be my last Nat Cassidy for sure. He just released Nestlings on Halloween Day, and I'm hoping to jump into that one soon. All right, so there is my recent reads wrap up. Thank you for joining me. If you made it this far, leave me some more pumpkins down there in the darkness, and I'll leave you some pumpkins in return. Keep being safe and keep being creative, and I'll catch you guys in the next bookish video.